Our friend Al Conson says, are you prepared for the next monster coronal mass ejection to hit our planet? If so, what did you prepare? I'm not prepared. Most of us aren't, and we may be in for a rude surprise. Coronal mass ejection is often referred to as a solar flare. The sun, is a gigantic thermonuclear reactor, and these things can be a little dicey sometimes. Every now and then, enormous quantities of actual mass are blown out into space. Now, this kind of thing happens all the time with these beautiful prominences and these arcs that you see on the surface of the sun, and they're constrained by magnetic fields because they're plasma. They're magnetized ionized gas. It's not like flame or anything. It's just magnetized ionized gas. And most of the prominences are ejected out, and they fall back to Earth, and they fall in these cool little loops and all kinds of things. But every now and then the sun has a really good beer belch and pushes part of the atmosphere of the sun out into space. Now, you would think that over time the sun would be depleted because it is, in fact, ejecting millions and millions and millions of tons of stuff in these mass ejections. But comets are constantly falling into the sun, so the general mass stays about the same. And frankly, as a percentage of the sun's mass, it doesn't really miss. It's like us shedding skin cells during the course of the day. So, there was a giant one in the 1800s. The great thing about this show is anytime I don't know the answer to something, the answer will appear right up there in that box in about 25 seconds. Back in the 18-something or other, there was a coronal mass ejection called the something, the Wood event or something. In any event, it was a coronal mass ejection. It's the sun kicking off an awful lot of ionized gas, and it produces a tremendous amount of magnetic disruption. It's like an EMP pulse. This thing that happened in the 1800s was so enormous that it caused operators of telegraphs to receive sparks. In other words, this thing generated such a strong magnetic field that the telegraph wire, somebody said 1859, that's astronaut, you might know, we'll get more information in a second on this event. It produced such a strong magnetic field that the copper in telegraph wires, now telegraph is not a microchip, folks, a telegraph is just a big thick piece of copper wire, and you have to punch a ton of current down there. Now we got a couple of people, GK Masters, since this was 1859. So the Compton effect, okay. In 1859, coronal mass ejection produces tremendous shot. Carrington, that sounds right. Carrington effect, and it produced such a strong magnetic field that it was inducing enough of a current into copper wires in telegraphs that guys were getting shocked off of their telegraph machines. Now, as I said, a telegraph is a iron bar as thick as my finger with a couple of magnets connected to a big thick piece of cable. It takes a lot to hurt a telegraph. A telegraph's a pretty robust piece of equipment. Anything close to that size would basically cook all of our micro circuits. It would cook virtually all of our transmission lines. One of the most disgraceful things, and our friend Frank Gaffney is all over this thing, is how unbelievably unprepared our electrical grid is for something even close to the Carrington effect. Even close. It doesn't take a EMP attack from Iran, and these things are not like they don't happen. They happen all the time. Now, fortunately for us, when this coronal mass ejection takes place, it's got to be aimed more or less at the Earth, which means, we have a good chance of missing them. But they do happen frequently, and it's just a matter of time. And when one of these things of that magnitude appears, it's going to take down our electrical grid. Now, the bad news here is not like the grid's going to go up for an hour, or the guy's going to go for a couple days, and they're going to get the linemen out there and put it back up like we have with an ice storm or something. It's going to fry significant proportion of all of the electronics on the Earth. It's going to fry the cars. It used to be, in the old days, you had a 1970 Camaro. If you could basically maybe cook the solenoid or something, but the car's more or less intact. Nowadays, with all these cars with their own microchips, which are great because that means, remember the days when you have to go out and start a car in the morning, I remember those days. Those days are gone, and the reason they're gone with new cars is because the electronic ignition on modern automobiles advances and retards the spark. So they literally are telling the engine, we're going to make it easy for you to start. Why is my nose so itchy? Probably cortisol deficiency. Modern electronics means that we basically fire the spark in a way that gets the engine started, and once the engine's started, then the spark timing adjusts to get you maximum efficiency, and that's marvelous. But those circuits will go. So all of the cars will go, most of the trucks will go, the electronics are going to go, most of the electrical system will go. If the electrical system goes, it's not just that we're out of lights. I mean, most people don't understand the magnitude of this. If the electrical system is brought down, it doesn't just mean our lights are off. It means that the refrigeration in the supermarket is off, and it means that the electrical systems on trucks to bring fresh food in from the agricultural areas are gone, and it means that the security systems are gone. It means that the ATMs aren't working. It means that the lights that keep people from breaking into stores are gone. And what's going to happen is it's not just going to be ugly in terms of what happens with the lack of electricity. It's going to be ugly in terms of what happens when people get the realization that there's no electricity. So it's not pretty. And the worst news is this. If we had a government that did what it was supposed to do, in other words, not get into everybody's business, get out of the way, and just be prepared for emergencies, defend the country, make sure that everybody's playing by the same set of rules, not in the game, just enforcing the game, and doing little things like being prepared, then we could protect these electrical systems. But one of the things that Frank points out is that these transformers in these sub-power stations, the ones that kick the system along, is not just the power generation plants. These electrical subsystems have transformers that are the size of diesel locomotives, and here's the best part. Not only do we not have bunches of them on the shelves as spares, virtually every single one of them is unique. It's a unique structure. It fits into that particular facility. It's not like they're standardized. It's not like you just plug them in. It takes 6 months to a year to replace one of these things, and if this kind of thing happens, we will be without electricity in this country for probably 2 to 3 years. And that is the end of America as we understand it. I mean, honestly, it's catastrophe. And it's not like, gee, this may happen someday. It's going to happen someday. It's going to happen someday. And as Glock Fanboy points out, God bless you for cheering me up here, because we don't talk about the event and remain indoors. For those of you who are, I miss the Michelin Web days, maybe I'll bring them back. That's the only thing I didn't really link to on Michelin Web. There's so many of their sketches were so much fun. I put them up on Facebook. And Michelin Web are a British comedy, sketch comedy duo. And I don't know, I may have linked to it once, but it's so dark. It's so dark. It's a game show that takes place in a post-apocalyptic future. And it's just awful. It's just hilariously funny, but they don't even know what happened. They just know it was the event. So we don't talk about the event and stay indoors. But you know what? Carrington effect level coronal mass ejection, it doesn't have to be anything like as big as the Carrington effect, by the way, will put us in the darkness for 2 or 3 years, the whole planet, and that's the end of everything. It's not the end of human civilization. It's not the end of life on Earth, but it's the end of this. And if this goes away for 2 years, what comes back after 2 years will not be what was here before, because what is the amount of food supply? By the way, water, water. Well, water, yeah. I mean, I know this is kind of shocking to people who don't think about this too much, but the water that comes out of your tap is actually pumped there. It's not manifested. It's pumped. And it's pumped by pumps that run on electricity. And even if you have a generator, if the electrical coils are cooked and the subsystems are cooked, then it's cooked and you don't have any water. So my preparation is I have a lot of water, and I've got about maybe a 6, 7, 8 day supply of food, which is not enough. So those of you who think about these things, you might want to go stock up, because, look, it's going to be like the Titanic, right? They knew they didn't have enough lifeboats, and they sailed anyway, because ships like that have never sunk, and they probably never will. They didn't sink yesterday, didn't sink today, probably won't sink tomorrow. And like you, History Dave, I hope by Vectron that this never happens. But They might. Yeah, that's plenty scary. So get some food out there, guys, and especially water. And if it does happen, don't go where the people are. That'd be my advice to you.